Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Trent here at Leo at Home. We're doing a live drawing this evening. We wanted to change up the times a little bit, try to reach some more of you folks who might have to actually go into work and be one of those amazing essential workers that we need out in our society. Today, we are celebrating Earth Week. In fact, today is the 21st, so today is actually Earth Day, so happy Earth Day to all of you out there. We wanted to celebrate with this idea about celebrating the things that are all around us. So we would love to show you a little demonstration today of something that I love to do when I'm in my studio at home. I love doing little botanical drawings. So the idea of like taking things that you find out in nature and finding a way to put that onto a page. Now you could just do, of course, like little sheets of paper like this, a little like sketching book. I'm going to be using some watercolor today, so I specifically have a mixed media paper that I like to use. Definitely recommend checking out some nice fine watercolor paper. They usually say with at least 300 GSM for you to be able to use well with your watercolors. So today we're going to be focusing on how to like bring what we see into something that we see on a page. So we're going to need an eraser. If you want to use some watercolors, go for it. Literally, this is a tiny little set that I love using at home. I'm going to be incorporating some ink, some pen and ink into my drawings, and then a watercolor brush. And I have one of these fancy new ones that I was looking at this last summer online, and I found that it's this little watercolor pen that has a little container of water inside of it. So it kind of keeps things kind of rolling. I still like that traditional method, so I kind of want to show you a little bit of everything that I would love to do myself. So to start off, we're going to be taking our pencil, making sure it's nice and sharp. And we want to hold that pencil really loose in our hands like this, okay? So not something where we're going to be kind of like really working our muscles and holding that pencil like that. Okay, so taking this nice and loose. I set this up to where you can basically see from my perspective for the most part what I'm seeing here too. So as I'm taking a look, I want to look at general shapes that our flowers are making. So of course I see the shaft of the stem going right up in the very top. And then this is sort of this elongated kind of oval. So if I kind of create something loose to give me some parameters. That one's a little shorter, comes up about a third of the height, like so. And then this one, longer still. Okay. Got our stems kind of coming down out of the middle there. And then, as we're kind of looking, they become more sparse down at the very bottom of the plants that I'm looking at here. So the little flower petals themselves, little blossoms, are a little smaller in terms of their spacing. And then up here, the actual shape, they are new ones. So they're not as big as the more mature to the ones that are actually starting to wilt at the very bottom, okay? I also want to notice here about color in a little bit, that it's lighter purple on top, darker purple on the bottom with a mid-tone in the middle. So as I'm kind of looking here, I can kind of make maybe a few little circles underneath that are kind of showing that it's more sparse, and my color would appear more sparse as well. And I'll show you that more when I get to the paints. Okay, so I'm just going to start off here. A botanical sketch is just a little rendering about something that you're observing out in nature. I gotta tell you, the one thing I have to keep myself in mind here is that art does not have to be perfect. It does not have to fit this idea of being good. It just is whatever you want it to be. Like, it's just an exercise in observation. You know, being the Leonardo Museum, we do these kind of drawings to emulate the kinds of things that Leonardo da Vinci himself would do. I would even say, if I were to, you know, be as bold to speak for Leonardo da Vinci, I think he'd be all about Earth Day. He was a vegetarian. He did believe in pacifism and the idea of working together to be able to solve the problems that we have in any day and age. Okay, so what you're seeing here, I'm talking about watercolor really quick. I am mixing a bit of water right into my palette. I like to get it kind of lathered. Like I like the consistency to be thick. I like really bold colors when I do watercolor painting. I'm gonna be adding a touch of this kind of pinkish purple to the side here, and then even a little bit, I would say, of this darker blue. Okay. When you start looking at like things from life, you never see a black outline, right? You never see that. This kind of style is going to be rendering those dark lines, but as we're kind of setting this up with like realistic-ish color, we want to start looking at what kind of shades are we seeing. Like I'm noticing a really dark blue turning into a dark purple, into a more lavender, into a periwinkle, into it's really, really light up top. So I'm going to lay a base, okay? Kind of creating little textures. The thing about watercolor brushes themselves, they can be pointed, right? And it allows for this control over water in a fine sort of way, but it also creates its own little texture in and of itself. So playing with on like a scrap piece of paper is something I totally recommend. In fact, I might pull one out here momentarily. So I'm just adding impressionistic little blobs of where I'm kind of seeing the colors and the kind of shapes. They're like these little round ovals. It's okay if it doesn't look defined at this moment because we're going to be going over here in just a little bit. Now, I said before that it's a little darker down here, so I added some blue in with my purple and kind of going back through and touching up at the very bottom, the base. So I'm starting to get like that transition of the color going up. And then I'm going to pull out some of this purple that I've already collected here. I'm going to kind of pull it off here to the side, add some more water, and it starts to make the shade more translucent. It's even more. Sometimes my brush does collect a lot. See, it's super faint. Let's see if that gets a little bit. There we go. All right, so now I'm just gonna quickly go back through here, do the same thing. Now this is something that I was kind of thinking about in preparation for this little lesson today. I was thinking, all right, you know, what are some things that I enjoy doing? I really love doing watercolor. I love drawing with pens. It's definitely my favorite medium, I would say, to like relax myself. And this little setup here can easily be put into a day bag and just taken right up to the mountain hike that you might want to do. Sitting on a little rock in the sunshine or in the shade, however you like to be, and just taking that moment to kind of be silent and quiet and start drawing what you observe. It allows you to be more present. It's something that I think, for me, it relaxes and calms my mind and gets me a little bit distracted at the same time as being present with my surroundings. Just definitely distracts me from like all of the craziness that's been going on lately. Okay, last one. Some more purple. There we go. Now, if you ever start wondering, oh no, what am I doing? Don't worry about that. Look back to what you are trying to observe. Try another way. Remember, like, this isn't about focusing on, you know, quote unquote mistakes. You just turn that into something else. And, you know, Bob Ross talked about that a lot. Just happy little accidents is all we're doing here. You can always use your little paper towel to the side. You can collect water that's kind of pooling, because if you have too much, it can start to warp that paper a little bit. You can also take this and dab it on and take off any extra as well. Okay. And some of that dark blue. Now I'm going to take this nice deep green, a lot of water, create this really beautiful texture in the paint itself. I'll pull a little bit of this green into it, a little bit of yellow to brighten it up, because it is really, you know, fresh. It's not like a deep dark like pine green. I think that looks about right. I think the thing I like most about doing these little watercolor illustrations and drawing is that it doesn't feel like a ton of pressure. I don't have to make them perfect. Okay, we're gonna keep it like that. Now, you can see there's still wet areas. The middle one is most dry, but there's still some areas that are a little bit wet. So I'm gonna kind of take this. I'm gonna kind of dab. It'll help me dry it a little bit quicker, but if you let it sit there longer, it'll be more potent color. At least for this demonstration, I wanna like be able to get to that drawing aspect. Okay. All right, so we have our little blend of color. It's dry enough for us to be able to use. What I did here is I grabbed 3 different of my markers. I like using ones that are these like professional kind of ink, and I have different tips to them because they can yield different kinds of effects. These are ones that I like that there's enough of a gradient. I have a very thick, bold one, I have a medium one, and a super fine one. And that allows me to be able to get to the right like line weight when I am drawing. So I'm gonna start off with our medium. So as I'm doing this, I'm starting to again look here at these little florets, these little flowers here. I start to kind of see these ones that are down here. They're more wilted, so they're a little bit more together and they're a little bit more wrinkly. So as I'm kind of carving things out, I am trying to mimic that little shape that I see. So a really great way to practice observational drawing is actually using your eyes, right? You're observing things. And you want to continually look back and look at what you're doing and see what it is, what kind of shapes you're making. Are you being consistent with what we see here? As I'm starting to get up here, they're starting to be a bit more full. The bulbs are a little bit bigger, right? I'm starting to get an opening in some of these little areas that are in here too. For me, I like to do really quick, kind of impressionistic strokes, kind of getting like the main feel for what I'm seeing. If you are more detail oriented and kind of going through and getting exact proportions, that's also awesome. Do what makes you happy. There's not necessarily a right or wrong way, but there's really great advice in terms of how to start doing observational drawing. So like using different scales, you can use your pen to be able to take measurements to transfer things over that way too. Many artists would have journals that they would take around with them and doing quick little observational sketches. You know, famously, scientists like Darwin would take sketches of the different species he was finding, of the flora, the fauna. Da Vinci also did the same thing. He would take sketches, geological sketches, he would study landscape, and he would use those to inform his knowledge of science in the world. Now, as I mentioned up here, these are small, skinny sort of suggestions of flowers there. Now, I like the effect that the watercolor doesn't match up with the lines necessarily. It gives us really, to me, it's really nostalgic. The idea like botanical drawings, you look at these old drawings and these old books like my grandparents would have, and being able to look through those things, and it takes you back to a time when you were looking at and learning about things. Let me show you with this bold one here. I'm gonna kind of look at this and start to see that there's some heavier shadows. I wanted to use a bigger, bolder marker to kind of get some dark shadows in this. when you add shadows to any image, you are essentially creating depth. So the dark colors start to push back into the plane of the paper itself. Highlights bring things forward, it brings things up and closer. In our minds, at least, that's how we sort of work it out. Whether or not it's actually doing that, that's what the trick of a good artist is knowing how to gently create form in the spaces that we have. Then I love using the fine tip to gently create some midtones. So I like to create little lines as trying to suggest where smaller shadows are along the edges. Using that to kind of demonstrate the shape of the stem being round, like a cylinder. The area that I don't color in ends up becoming like a highlight in our mind's eye. With the fine tip, you can also get smaller little suggestions of dots, textures, lines on the petals. When we start doing that, it starts giving more information for our brains to read our drawing and our image. All right, so there's some tips and tricks. I didn't finish mine today. I am gonna finish mine this evening, and perhaps I'll post it. The last little bit that you'll wanna do is take your eraser and go through and draw out any of the eraser marks that you see. And that just keeps it nice and clean. Et voila. Now, I would love to see what you guys end up creating and all your kinds of hikes out there. Post them onto this little lesson that we've done here today. And again, I'm Trent here with Leo at Home. Thank you guys so much. Have an awesome day.